Okay, so we'll kick off. First of all, everyone, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining. I will, start by introducing myself. It's a weird one. I don't really know where to look. Okay, I'll just look at me. So my name is Hannah Ajala. I'm the founder of We Are Black Journos. And We Are Black Journos launched on the 27th of November, 2018. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've worked at the BBC for almost 6 years. And it's those years working and, doing my job, which I absolutely love, which has now led me to the important need of creating this platform. So put simply, what is We Are Black Journos? It is an events platform celebrating and connecting Black journalists. So we do this by creating visibility, essentially, through our events and letting others know we do exist. The sole focus of We Are Black Journos is to celebrate Black people who love broadcasting and who are owning it, breaking the barriers and stereotypes, and simply doing, what they love in an industry where they're immediately considered a minority. But we want to put a positive flip on that. So we're here to embrace and elevate not only ourselves, but those who are passionate about wanting to work in broadcasting one day. So not that you'd already have to be an established Black journalist within your field, but those that are in university, we also want to do this for them. Again, it's quite a personal thing because it's just celebrating the things that I didn't see. Now, as you can clearly see, this event, wherever you saw it advertised, is about allyship and the power of it. So if I was to define it, I mean, there's so many different ones, but one that I saw tweeted, which also played a big part of inspiring this event, is allyship being a practice, which means it takes commitment, not just in serving social justice movements, but also a commitment to undoing their own bias, prejudice, and ideology that perpetuates oppression and marginalization. So, that's exactly what we're asking for. We're not necessarily asking for a partnership. The only credit and recognition we want to come out of this platform is to elevate Black journalists and support them. So please, those that are in the power and position to literally just ask to help and support our ever-growing network of Black journalists. I would say in the past 4 or 5 physical events that we have done, we have a community about 80 plus Black journalists, and that's growing, which is amazing. I babble a lot, so I did actually write down a speech in case anyone noticed my eyes shifting. So yeah, the bottom line is that diversity and inclusion is always something that industries should strive for, and that's every industry. Society should be reflective in several workplaces. Another one of my favorite quotes: media can't reflect society if society isn't reflected in the media. But unfortunately, that isn't the case in many places. So that's where the sense of community can often lack. And I myself, I'm a big believer, if it's something that we're not seeing being celebrated enough, we can do ourselves. So I guess that's what I'm doing right here by creating this platform. And yeah, I'm really appreciative of everyone joining and still yet to join. So I just want to do a quick, not an icebreaker, but I'd love to get some answers based on this question that I'm about to pop into the chat box. Okay, so I'm just popping it in now. So the question is, that I'm just about to pop in. Okay, given the discussions we're having globally about race, what's one key thing you've learned? So I've just popped it into the chat box. Again, it would be lovely to get some views, completely optional, not obligatory, but it'll be really great just to get some views from anyone really, or as much as we have in this chat. It doesn't have to be a think piece. It could even be a word, if it's a key thing, togetherness, or I don't know. or yeah, anything of that sort. So I'll write mine. One key thing that I've learned is, I'll just put my name as well. And please do confirm that you can see the chat box. Okay, I've just seen a wave of comments come through, so you can. Great. I love that, Lorna. So there's definitely power in unity. Nikki, how much race? Oh, wow. Okay, it's going so quick. How much racism there is in Scotland and how most are unaware that it exists? I'm just going to pick ones from random. Yasmin, Britain has a lot more learning to do on institutional racism. Absolutely. Mauyan, that a lot of people are willing to learn about racism now. Yep, knowledge is power. Morayo, people might flock to white experts on race at the expense of engaging with Black theorists. That's very interesting. Louise, hey, that to listen properly is to listen without your ego. Absolutely. I love that. Please keep them coming, keep them coming. I really want us just to get as interactive as we can in this chat box, which, as I said earlier, we'll be using throughout this session. Osob, hey Osob, there's more openness to explore solutions on tackling racism. Exactly, more discussions, more uncomfortable conversations until it's normalized. So yeah, I'm really, really loving these. Thank you. And I'm aware that everyone's muted, just in case we have, I don't know, anyone has a dog that randomly starts barking and you can't hear me too well. But there will be lots of chances for those who want to say something. Again, please pop that in the chat box. You could also message me privately. It should say We Are Black Journos, and then I'll unmute you and you can chat. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead with this virtual event. Can anyone pop a thumbs up in the comment box if you're ready to go ahead to the next bit? So good to go. Or, no, you don't even need to comment it. You can just put the thumbs up. Great, seeing lots of thumbs. Wow, amazing, love it, yes. Okay, brilliant. So, yeah, for those who are just joining, I was literally just touching on what I do and why I created We Are Black Journos. Again, this Zoom call is being recorded and it's going to be uploaded later onto YouTube where you can watch back and please do share about. So as you know, the theme of this event is about allyship and building that network. I don't know why, but calling someone an ally, I feel like it's almost like I don't know, a Spider-Man movie, like, or just an interesting way to describe someone. But yeah, I guess that's the term that I'll be saying a bit in this. So I thought, you know, there is power in togetherness, and it's been incredibly humbling since starting We Are Black Journos, the unwavering support that we've been getting, and even in the last couple of weeks, especially since we're seeing that the topic of race, racism, Black Lives Matter, we're seeing it all over our timelines. We're seeing more of a wider conversation about race. And also, I guess, a little bit surprisingly, seeing a massive wave of a following count on We Are Black Journos, Twitter, and Instagram, loads of people interacting with us and wanting to know more about what we do, and loads of shout outs. And to be honest, any type of support is good support. It's getting our name out there. And again, it's using the power of allyship to put the name of our platform or the people that we're trying to help into rooms that haven't even heard of us yet. So that's amazing. And when I say we, I mean Black journalists. So it's been incredible to connect with so many of you guys who followed us on Twitter, and we've just been, you know, DMing some of them. You know, some of them have even been putting themselves forward to express their interest of wanting to support, which means so much. So I would just like to introduce one of them right now. It's Charlie Phillips, who's a video journalist at The Guardian. So he's literally just gonna touch on a little bit about what he does and how we like to help. Now, the mission is to find Charlie. Okay, great. He's the box right below me. Unmuting now. Oh, God. Okay, yeah, it works. Hey, Charlie. Thank you.
Hey, hi everyone. Yeah, really good to be here. So yeah, I'm Charlie. I'm head of video at The Guardian. So I'm, well, in charge of all video at The Guardian. So I commission all of the moving image that you see on The Guardian site, or like me and my team commission all the video that you see on site. So that is anything from like a 30-second agency reactive news clip through to 30-minute documentaries that we do in our Guardian documentary strand. We have an in-house team who do some of our stuff, particularly things like explainers and more sort of reactive news features, but we also work with loads of freelancers. And that's the thing that I think is probably most relevant here, that a lot of the work that we put out, especially at the moment around coronavirus, where our team aren't traveling very much, and so we really need to work with people who are eyes on the ground. We need people to come to us and say, yeah, there's a really interesting story happening around me that I want to shoot, or I maybe want to edit as well. We're really interested in hearing those stories that you have very particular access to. And we really rely on that to get like the widest range of stories going out on The Guardian. And like The Guardian as an organisation puts out more video than almost any other UK news organisation, or certainly like more original video. With everything that's been happening in the wake of the protests in America, in the UK and everywhere else, we've been reflecting a lot on how we work with Black journalists and Black filmmakers. And although we have some Black filmmakers in our team, and although we have worked with Black freelancers, I really acknowledge that we haven't done enough. And I think there've been a lot of blind spots in the whole organisation, but including in our department. And so this is a sort of, the reason I really wanted to be here is that there's a really renewed determination on my part to make sure that we are out there saying to all of you and people in your networks and everyone that you know that we really want you to come to us with your ideas for film and video of all lengths. And that's on any subject as well. Like, this absolutely isn't me saying you need to come and you need to pitch us ideas on race and on protests. That's on absolutely anything, just to be totally clear. So I think the main thing sort of that I wanted to put out there is that if you've got stuff that you're wanting to make videos on, if you've got ideas that are floating around with you, even if you're not someone who's done loads of video, and so it might be something where you can team up with our in-house video team, then we are super interested to hear from you. And yeah, to start a relationship with you. So yeah, sorry, that was a bit rambly, but hopefully.
No, thank you for that, Charlie. Yeah, I guess just providing detail that it doesn't have to be, race related or anything, but just a passion for any type of video making and content, which is great. So how would you like to be contacted, should I say?
So you can email me. So my email address is charlie.phillips@theguardian.com. Yeah, like everyone at The Guardian, we've got really easily findable email addresses because it's just first name dot surname @theguardian.com.
Is it 2 L's in Phillips, or just one?
Yeah, 2 L's in Phillips. Yeah, so 2 L's in Phillips.
Okay, I've done it for everyone. I've popped it in the chat box.
That's the one. Yeah. So just drop me a line, and that can, if you're quite sort of sure about what you want to do, then that could be like one page that's sort of very sure on like, this is what I want to film and this is when I want to film it and this is what I'm going to do. But if you're less sure than that, and it's really, or if you've got less experience in video making, then it can just be like a few lines saying, I'm interested in exploring this subject. Is that something that you want to talk about more? And then either I'll get back to you or I'll get one of the commissioners who works under me to get back to you.
Okay, I've just got a private question, Charlie, about pitching. Do you mind touching on pitching a bit, commissioning, pay and turnaround / deadlines? Sorry, that's like 4 different things, but let's go with pitching.
Yeah. Pitching quite that generally. So it depends on the strand that we're talking about. So if we're talking about like sort of reactive news videos or like news features, which are generally about stuff that's happening in the news at the moment, obviously, and so we need to turn them around quite quickly. We will sort of, we'll generally get back to you within like a day or something to say whether it's going to work or not, and then we'll probably want you to go and film it if you're filming it, like within a few days. So it's like super quick. So like, a really good example at the moment is like it's the the first round of the Polish presidential elections on Sunday, and the Polish video producer got in touch with us on Wednesday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Yeah, so yesterday to say, oh, I've got access to film with various LGBTQ people because really homophobic president in Poland. And then we got to a point at the end of the day today where we like gave the green light, having done our internal checks. So it's like really as quick as that. And what was the other thing? On pay, so we generally pay a day rate if it's like news features, which is sort of variable. And I'm deliberately not going to say a number now because it really depends on like who you are and what you're doing. But it's not like loads of money, but we will match it to the amount of work that you need to put in. And usually with a news feature, we'll be relying on something like a day's pre-production, like 2 days shoot. And if you're editing it, then maybe like 2 days editing. That's sort of at one end, and then another end is that we also do our documentary strand, which, because they're like bigger films for bigger budgets, it's a much more elongated process where we might spend like weeks going back and forth with you on your ideas.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Thanks for that, Charlie. That was really helpful. And again, to anyone that's just joining, Charlie's email is in the chat box. If you scroll up just a little, it's charlie.phillips@theguardian.com.
Cool.
So yeah.
Shall I take that question? Yeah. Sorry, I can just really quickly, I can see that Dion's asking about pitching a current affairs or social affairs idea. If you drop me an email, then I'll direct you to the right people, and that goes for everyone. Like, just because I do video, if you want to be connected to someone at The Guardian, then you can just drop me an email and I'll point you in the right direction.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Thank you, Charlie. That's fab. Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Muting you now. Oh, I have so much power. Just mute. Like, boom, that's it. Okay, so yeah. Those who have physically been to a We Are Black Journos event, let me scroll through. Who can I actually recognize that's been to a We Are Black Journos event? Okay, well, Kesewa, who's going to be speaking next, has been. And yeah, one format that we always have in our events is that we'll have a panel, usually an all-black panel of amazing Black journalists, just to tell us a bit about what they do, their background. And one thing that was so inspiring for me as an aspiring journalist was seeing that example. And my example, it was 3 examples actually. It was Trevor McDonald's, the legend. It was Charlie in White, and still is, I guess they all still are. And it was Claudia Lisa Armour, Channel 5 journalist. So I'm very thankful to have been mentored by at a younger age as well. So that's one thing that we're quite big on. When we are allowed to do physical events in the future, you will be able to, see the many panelists we have and why, because, representation is really important. So yeah, I'm really excited to hand it over to our first panelist, who's Kesewa Hennessy, and she's going to tell us a little bit about, first of all, who she is, what she does, how long she's been doing it, things like career progression, how she was able to get from A to B to Z, advice to our other allies here about how they can also help, seeing this question being floating around a lot, especially with the recent stuff going on. Like, how can I help? What can I do? Well, some answers can be provided here, and anything else you'd like to add. Now, the mission for me is to find Kesewa, because I saw her a moment ago. Okay, I found her. We're unmuting. Kesewa's in the house. Okay. Yeah, I've unmuted you.
Can you? Great. Thanks so much, Hannah. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm a big fan of We Are Black Journos. Before I go any further, can I just check? Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, great. I had a slight technical issue. So yeah, I'm Kesewa Hennessy. I work at the Financial Times as the very long title, digital editor for audience engagement. And so that means I work on the audience engagement team, which is sort of basically about trying to encourage more subscribers to read more of the FT content. And I work specifically on projects to engage more female readers, because we have quite a limited female audience which we'd like to build up. and also beyond that, sort of more diverse audiences generally. And hopefully that's picking up momentum now, that aspect of the job, given kind of where we are with post-Floyd stuff. I started at the FT about 16 years ago as in a sub-editing role, and then moved into a commissioning editor role, and then went to Tokyo for a few months because the FT is owned by a Japanese company on a secondment, and then moved back to the UK into this role. I was completely new to audience engagement. I don't think I'd heard of it before I started my job. But I really love it because you've got lots of flexibility in terms of how you can affect change in a company. It's a company that, like most news organisations, is predominantly white. So it feels like there's a lot of work to do, but there's also a lot of opportunity, especially with the way that media is changing at the moment. It's kind of different platforms and formats. And what's happening now feels like a real opportunity as well for the company and for the industry as a whole, and for Black journalists. So I thought, moving on to that, I might say a little bit about allyship and how that has become a really important factor in the last couple of weeks, or the last few weeks since the killing of George Floyd. So I was just thinking a bit about how I would define allyship when you set up this talk, Hannah. And for me, in a practical sense, in my role, it's about somebody being prepared to share or give up some of their power or use their privilege to create a more equal situation. And there's also, for me, an implicit cost involved. So if a colleague asks you how you're doing in the wake of a terrible event like the killing of George Floyd, that may be supportive or it may be kind, but I wouldn't say on its own it's allyship. So that the next step to turn it into an act of allyship would be, yes, actively listening, and then doing what you can to bring about change. So whether that's, if you're in a position to make change, doing something active to change it based on what you've heard, or, you know, using your voice in a forum where there are no other Black colleagues. So, you know, whether it's at senior level, going into a room and conveying what you've heard and really encouraging or challenging those senior colleagues to do something about it. And allyship really matters for Black journalists in our industry because we are so few in numbers. Like, we're, I think, 0.2% of the industry. Somebody might be able to correct me on that, but that's the most recent figure I have. And that's compared to 3% of the population, more in London, which is where the industry is based. So if you contrast that with the kind of moves for gender equality that a lot of us would have been involved in our industry, it's a completely different proposition because the industry is about 50% female. Of course, there are structural inequalities. So we're a real minority, and it's really hard to reach that tipping point, which I think we're kind of starting to get to with gender, where people are starting to go, yeah, it makes sense to have a sort of gender equality. And if you don't agree with that at this point, you're probably a bit of a holdout. The other thing that means that allyship is really important for us in the industry is that there are so few senior Black journalists who have the authority to bring about change themselves. And again, contrast with gender equality situation where increasingly there are senior women, like at the FT, for example, we have a female editor as of this year. So by definition, those at senior levels in journalism are largely removed from the issue. They don't have an inbuilt empathy because it affects them. I'm not saying they're not empathetic people, but just that the situation is they're less likely to have that understanding. They're probably going to have to give up some of their own power, which they've worked really hard to get. So they might be a little bit reluctant to do that, like anyone in power. And they're going to have to take a professional risk to make change happen. So we by definition, we need allies to make change happen, because we're not in those positions where we can do it ourselves. We can't pull the levers ourselves. So the next thing I would sort of say in terms of allyship is, how do you find your allies as a Black journalist? And I'd say they're much harder for us to find than for women. Like, many of us here are women, and we've worked towards trying to bring about equality. Like, in my experience, it's hard to find allies on racism than it is on gender. And one factor is the whole as a father of daughters thing. Like, that's a real entry point for men who are thinking about bringing about equality in journalism, because they are really closely related to women, whether it's their families, their partners, their own children. And by definition, it's not the same with race, because in an industry that's 94% white, most people won't have those really close relationships with Black people that foster empathy and share perspective. So trying to find allies can be a bit clandestine. You know, just like it can be a chance conversation with somebody who's like, you know, what do you think about X? And just kind of be opportunistic in my experience, just take allies where you find them. And then it just kind of helps to build up trust over a long period of time. So what sort of came to light with this situation was those people who you kind of got to know were kind of interested in racial equality, suddenly became active allies, and there weren't necessarily huge amounts of them, but they made a real difference. And so the sorts of things that were really useful for me and other Black journalists in the past few weeks at work would be like a manager of a team who uses the levers available to her to make a change to amplify Black voices on social media from within our output that might not otherwise reach as many people, or to share information on why it's relevant business that we cover the story that might otherwise not be seen as a natural story for my publication, maybe others. Other colleagues would have been sort of collating information on tone and language, like why not to use death in police custody as a euphemism, why to avoid the tradition of using passive language around police violence against Black people, and making a point of arguing for the first Black voice on this story in our publication to be given a platform. And that's quite a few days in, so that would have been a difficult conversation for that colleague of mine, and for me it really made a difference. And then as well as informal allyship, there's formal networks. So, you know, buddy up with kind of your other employee groups. The LGBT group have been really supportive on this at my place of work, and the union has been as well. And looking ahead, the company I work for is overwhelmingly white. I mean, I'm hearing really encouraging things about the changes that people at senior level really feel need to be made. So I'm definitely going to kind of engage with that and work with that process. And the last thing I'd say is just I'm also thinking more carefully about how I can be an ally to other groups. Having valued the contribution others have made here, it's kind of made me more aware of what I, for whatever privilege I may have, can do to support other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Kes. That was great. No, absolutely. I think that's what's really great to sort of be connected with people like yourself, with your several years of experience working at a massive, you know, print. Oh, sorry, I thought someone wrote a comment, and being the FT, because this will provide a lot of light for those that are aspiring to work in it. And Kesewa works alongside a team who would be happy to get in touch. So we'll sort that out in terms of, you know, the best contact details or who you can reach. And there will be a Q&A bit just after this if anyone has any specific questions. And I agree with your comment, Tony, about 16 years, because when Kesewa told me she's been there for that long, I couldn't believe it either, because basically it doesn't show, so keep it up. So now I'll hand it over to our second and final panelist before we move on to other sections, being Maurice McLeod. I'm just gonna pass it over to you, Maurice, and unmute you. I hope it works. Yeah.
It should have worked. It looks like it has. Hello. Thank you for that. And it's brilliant hearing and seeing you, Kes. As you know, maybe you won't know, but we worked together quite a lot longer than that, 16 years ago, on my first newspaper, which was The Voice, back in the day when it was in Brixton, when Brixton was a black place. I'll sort of do a very quick run through my story, but it's a lot more piecemeal, and I have a feeling that that sadly it probably echoes the sort of careers of a lot of black journalists, in that I feel like I'm the perpetual freelancer. So I mean, I started off, it's quite late into journalism. I was in my sort of mid-20s. Just finished uni, I had a child, wasn't really sure what I was doing with life, but I knew I liked telling stories, and I was interested in politics. So kind of just one night came up with journalism. That's what I'm going to do. And obviously then you look around and you know nobody. There's nobody I've ever heard of even that's a journalist that I could talk to about this. So it took me, I spoke to, I can't remember who I spoke to. I found a journalist somewhere and asked them. They said the best course was a postgrad at City University. So I applied and got knocked back because I had never lifted a pen. So, you know, no wonder. Went back the next year, having done a little bit of work experience, got knocked back again. Back the third year, and they recognised me. Linda Christmas, who ran the course, sort of recognised me and said, you know, you're pretty persistent. You know, but what's your plan B? What are you going to do if I say no this time? And I just said, well, you'll just see me next year. And she sort of, well, okay, I'll let you on the course. So I sort of started on this sort of course, which with everyone who seemed a lot more experienced than me. I think there are maybe about 3 or 4 Black journalists, or journalists of colour even, among sort of 30 of us. But it was like Hannah Paul, Fraser Nelson, who went on to edit The Spectator, Amelia Gentleman, who sort of writes for The Guardian and brought the Windrush story to more prominence. So we had a good sort of, I don't know, slate of people. And one of the things I think I found from being on such a course was that, you know, we all have these insecurities. You know, am I good enough? Can I do this? When you spend a year with a load of people, you get to go, okay, well, yeah, they're good at this, I'm good at that. You kind of see where you fit. So some of the fear when you finish the course and they shoot off and start doing amazing jobs, and I'm still scratching around, of course you think, well, it's partly to do with me. I'm not interviewing very well. Maybe there's something missing in me. But when you kind of know, the level of your friends who are going on and doing brilliantly, and you're going to meet them at their swanky new offices, you kind of get a feeling of what might be going on. But so anyway, I started. So I got a job in the only place where I could think of that wouldn't have a problem with me being black, which was the Voice newspaper. My mum used to read it. I had no real connection to it, if I'm honest. But it was an amazing experience working in an environment where it was all right to talk about race, and no one was going to get embarrassed if you called stuff out. And yeah, I would say there were issues around the way the paper was run, and there were all sorts of issues about pay and treatment. But in terms of a basis in community journalism, I thought it was really, really valuable. And then we had one of the moments that we're kind of having now, when the inquiry into the Lawrence murder came out, and an inquiry found that the police were institutionally racist. So suddenly you had every newspaper in the in the land writing about, the police are institutionally racist, and then you look around their own newsroom and go, yikes. We need to find some black journalists. Oh, I know, the Voice newspaper. They basically emptied the news desk within a month or so. Pretty much everyone I knew went off and started doing jobs on nationals because they wanted us in there. I then spent, after a bit of freelancing, I spent about 6 years on the Daily Express, which was pretty much the lowest point, I would say, of my journalism. It sort of joined when I thought it was going to be, it was trying to be a left-wing version of its former self, and I was all on board with that. Rosie Boycott came over from The Independent, and it was going to be a sort of left-wing mail, and I thought, okay, personal stories, that'll work. I could vibe with that. Then the paper was bought by a gentleman who's in the news at the moment, Richard Desmond, and we went to be in whatever that. Hey, it's a newspaper, and people ply their craft there. For me, it was absolutely in opposition to pretty much everything I believe. But there weren't a million other jobs, so I found myself doing a job I hated and lying to people about parties, about what I did for a living. That was pretty much the lowest point of my career, and I was done with journalism. A friend came and sort of rescued me, who was going through, a friend from The Voice who was going through a similar issues at ITN, actually. Came and we'd have a good old whinge together. So there's some real value in having that network. We got together and go, oh, today well, they're talking about a drug dealer, and they assumed he was Nigerian, and they turned and apologized to me, and I'm Jamaican. We'd have so many stories that we just keep. You know, I got asked to buy drugs on my very first day at the Express. One of the senior journalists, who's now pretty famous, came up to me, put an arm around, and asked me to score drugs. But you know, and you can say. You can say, you know, it's a small thing, isn't it? I've heard people say, isn't it good that people see a black person, black men in particular, I think, and there's this instant, oh, I know you, all right, mate. There's a real informality, and people say, oh, that's kind of nice that straight away you're past the stuffiness. But with that comes a perpetual infantilizing. So I'm always. I'm 50 years old. I still get called by people 10, 15 years younger than me. All right, lad, are you guys? I'm like, hang on, what? You know, I am a grown-up. So it comes. I think it comes with a double-edged sword. That sort of two-dimensional allyship, if that's what they're calling it. That sort of like, oh yeah, I know you, all right, mate. And they start talking about their friends who's got dreadlocks or whatever it might be. There's all that stuff happens. Anyway, eventually escaped, and I'll fast forward. I was freelancing and doing more stuff around race, and I came across a new platform called Media Diversified, which a brilliant woman set up and ran, and basically was a home for Black and Asian journalists and writers to platform and tell their stories. Was involved in that for quite some time. And then weirdly I've gone into politics, but that's a whole other story. The last couple of years I've been a councillor, and now I'm doing weird things in the Labour Party about communication, which is a challenge all in itself. But in terms, so back to the point of the actual conversation, allyships, what I've found is that I think there's different levels of allyship, or I'm taking it back from my point of view, so forgive me. I'm not giving advice to how allies should act, but from my point of view, there's people that I've met who are friends and, you know, can introduce me to an editor or can do useful things like that, but won't ever really want to engage in these sorts of conversations about race or white privilege, and that's, you know what, I kind of think, fine, that's okay, that's where you fit in my life. You know, we'll have a coffee, we'll have a chat, we'll talk about football, we'll, you know, talk about who's moved on from what publication, but that's not your bag. You're not ready for that conversation yet. That's still, that person, that relationship is still of use to me. They're still a useful person to know. I just know that when it comes to, I guess, the more thorny issues, there really are only a handful of people, of white people, I guess I'd say, that I think I could take those issues to and really talk about them honestly. And for that, as Kes was saying, that trust takes a long time, though. You know, when you're used to being patronised and overlooked and all those sorts of things, and knowing that they come in all sorts of guises. So many, I've often found that the sort of allyship which is actually people trying to push me forward. It's happening a lot more to me in politics. So going, oh, great, I think you'd be a wonderful talker on knife crime. Oh, go on. That sort of thing. You're like, hang on, why don't you step back and tell me what I want to write and talk about? There's always going to be the challenge of what you do writing about race. I've spent a lot of time, even though I started on The Voice, kind of trying almost not to, because I didn't want to get pigeonholed and, hey, I can write about politics and the economy and let me write about Jeremy Corbyn or whatever that, you know, I found time doing, I've been trying to do that. And I've just kind of over the years gone, well, this is the stuff that I can do that there sadly still aren't that many voices out there doing. So, you know, maybe I do write more and more about race. As time's gone on, I've kind of lent into it and realised that a lot of my resistance to even writing about that stuff was an embarrassment. I didn't want the spotlight, because for me, writing's quite personal. Even if it's just news stories, there's some of me that goes in there, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to constantly be doing that and constantly be having conversations with people, having to justify my existence and justify stuff that I feel is fairly self-evident. Hopefully that's changing now. The conversations I'm having, the people that are getting in touch, it does seem like, oh, you just knock us out an article on this. There's, come and talk to us about how we can do some of this stuff better, or, come and have a real look at our output and let us know where we can improve. I mean, to me, when I'm having a lot of my sort of wider friends coming to me and saying, what can I do in this moment? I'm on board, Black Lives Matter, yeah, woo. What can I do? And my answer is always the same. We look at our lives. We all have whatever we do. We all have power at some point in our lives, in some way, in the social interactions, in our conversations, family and friends. In work, if we have that. We can all do something. We can all do something to actively be tackling racism, rather than what it's been for many people up to now, just going, oh yeah, that's not me, I don't do that. So if we're moving on to that stage now of active listening and active participation, then I'm all for it. And there's cynicism, because I've seen a lot of watershed moments, but this does have a slightly different feel to it, and I'm all on board.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Maurice. I mean, I do have quite a few burning questions based on what yourself and Kesewa, who, for anyone just joining, by the way, are our two amazing panelists of the evening. I just wanted to hear a bit more from their experiences as Black journalists, and loving all of the questions in the chat box as well. Coming at a good time, because we're just about to go into our Q&A section. Now, the most organized way to do this, I know there's a feature where you can raise a hand. Please don't do that, because I have no idea how to access that. So instead, if someone could just, oh God, things are going so fast. You just type the word question, and then I'll call your name, and then I'll unmute you, because it will be nice to hear some of your lovely voices as well, just to make this a bit more interactive. So literally the first name that I see that pops up and says question, I will choose you. And that is Yasmin Thomas. Okay. Where's Yasmin? I wish there was like a feature where you could just search someone's name and you could find them. I mean, there probably is. I really should have read Zoom for Dummies.
Just click on participants at the bottom, and then there's a search bar at the top.
Even better. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Anais. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, sorry. Yasmin, Anais, thank you so much. Yasmin, could you unmute yourself, please, before I embarrass myself? If you could. Okay, great. I don't know where you are, Yasmin, but you're in the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity for this. I think it's like a really good networking thing. Like, a friend of mine that works at the Huffington Post suggested for me to join this, so I'm really appreciative. I just wanted to have a question for myself. I feel old, but I'm not really that old. I just turned 25 literally the other day. But I graduated uni a while ago, and as you can imagine, before, the whole Floyd thing, getting a job has been very, very hard. Like, in regards to myself, I feel like I have got quite a lot of experience. When I graduated, I'd done a bit of work at Grazia for a couple of weeks. I'd work at Kusa. I've done a lot of different magazines and stuff. But acquiring a job has just been something that's been really, really hard. And obviously, a lot of the places where I was working at, no one looks like me. Unfortunately, nobody did, really. And my last position that I was at a magazine, and that was around the time that was the Brit Awards. So obviously the whole Dave sort of thing with the performance with Dave, and talking about it was like, so it just seemed awkward for people. So I just wanted to get a bit of advice. I just recently started my own blog on Medium, and I got a really good response for it, which was I condensed my dissertation on the conformity to old stereotypes portrayed by Black women, so particularly the mammy stereotype and the tragic mulatto. So I just talked about that, and I got a lot of good feedback. But I just kind of wanted a bit of advice really on what avenues to take or how to get a job, because I feel like I've got a degree and I want to utilize it and it's hard. So yeah, just any advice really. That's it. That's all.
Oh, are we answering straight away, or how
Yes, please. So Maurice, you could go, and then hand it over to Kes if you have anything to add as well. So we'll just alternate each time.
Well, basically, I was going to hand it straight over to Kes because I don't have a job either. So I would imagine that if it's talking about getting a job, then she'd be more clued up. All I'd say is, in terms of where, getting published or getting your stuff out there, what I've sort of learned to do is decide where ideally I want to be. Like, where's the absolute best place for my stuff to be? What sort of thing would I want to put there? And just be relentless until I get there. Find a way of, do you know what I mean? Find a link, find someone there, find someone who knows someone there, come up with good pitches, consume their stuff so you know what they're doing, so that when you do pitch, it's in line with what they do. There's nothing worse than someone going, oh, I'm offering you this, and thinking, you've never even looked at my stuff, have you? Because this isn't what we do. So all that kind of thing. This is all really, I would assume this is really obvious, and it doesn't make it easier. But that's what I've ended up doing. And over the years, it's slightly easier as my sort of backlog of work has improved. But in terms of getting an actual job, probably over to you, Miss Hennessy.
Yeah, I'm trying to rack my brains. I'm not so familiar with the entry level at this point, having been around for at the other end of the career ladder or the middle of it. But I mean, one way that people often end up at the FT at entry level is through Creative Access, through their program, which I know the FT's got connections with. I'm just trying to think. So FT and lots of publications have various schemes at entry level. Some of them have a specific diversity aspect, and that's great, and some of them don't. So I'd go for all of them across the industry, and I'd focus on the areas like the publications that you're most interested in. If it's magazines, from what you're saying, that sounds like there's an area of interest there. And yeah, I think Maurice is up. Sorry, Maurice, I always get your name wrong. I started calling you Maurice as a joke, and I think I've realised it's actually Maurice.
No, my name is Maurice.
Yay! I'm getting it right. I'm getting it right for all this time. So I'm going to call you Maurice as a joke now. But yeah, just sort of, you're exactly right. Just really be familiar with the publications that you're interested in, and so who writes there. Become a fan of certain writers, and just kind of like be familiar with everything they do. And yeah, and also hopefully we'll have some details for the FT that we can share as well, if you wanted to get in touch too.
Thank you so much for that, both. Because we'll get quite a few, I think whoever wants to answer the question the most, if you just go for it. Sorry. Okay, so after Yasmin's question, we had a question from Jean. Jean, John, could you kindly unmute yourself, Jean? If you're able to. Okay, I found you. Okay.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, first of all, what a fantastic event. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I've actually worked with both Kes and Maurice, and you guys have both spoken so well, a real insight even to the old timers. So thank you both for that. To the young girl who said that she's done freelance at some of those magazines, if she could, I would love for her to message me, because I work for that same company that you did work experience for. And if I can find a way for you to come back in any way, to do some more work experience, to get some freelance stuff, to actually start making money from your writing, then I can endeavour to do that. But I would definitely love to speak to you and to try and help you find an inroad into at least my organisation. I work for a magazine called Take a Break, which is a women's magazine. And in all the years that I've been in journalism, I feel that very little has changed. Maurice, I know, spoken about this recently, you would feel the same. I just wonder how both of you feel about the kind of questions you've been asked in the wake of George Floyd from your organisations, and not necessarily from friends, but at a higher level. People perhaps expecting you to have the answers, to tell them where to go, to do next. I just wonder how much pressure as Black journalists we feel that we have to have the answers for everything when something happens.
Shall I speak? Okay. Thank you, Jean. Yeah, it's definitely, first of all, it's odd being asked, because I don't know about people here, but I think I've spent most of my years in journalism, or especially in mainstream journalism, not being asked and not being listened to about any of this. So it feels very strange to suddenly, like, speaking for my people, you know, it's like, it's just quite bizarre. And it is a pressure, because you feel like perhaps this is a chance that will never come again to try and change the industry in a way that we've all probably wanted to all our careers. It's like, you know, it's like Maurice says, like, I'm thinking back to the only time I can think of had such impact from a British perspective would be Stephen Lawrence murder. And it's this situation feels to me of that magnitude, the way it's impacted us as Black journalists. Like, it's just been devastating, even though it's happened in a different country to us. So to respond to that, it does feel like a pressure. I've just always tried to say that I'm not speaking for anyone, really. I mean, I try to reflect what I hear from people who look like me and my colleagues, if I have an opportunity to do that for someone senior, to kind of amplify those voices. But I just think we have to be realistic. We don't all know the answers, and why would we? We're not. Like someone said to me, well, I speak to an economics expert if I want to know, if I want a second opinion on a voice about economics, and I'll speak to you if I want a second opinion on a piece about racism. And it's very different being an economics expert to just being a Black person who happens to have more melanin. It's not an area of expertise. So I think we just have to be honest and frank, not allow ourselves to be put in a position where we feel a pressure to be solving the problems of these huge corporations that, you know, are perfectly capable of solving big problems when they put their mind to it.
I think that's excellent. I'll just add that I saw the Dizzy Rascal interview with Piers Morgan, and that to me, I you know, a lot of people I know were criticising, oh, you had a moment to talk about Black Lives Matter and you didn't. I kind of think, absolutely, he was on there to talk about whatever nonsense he was on there to talk about. Not every Black person has to be the sort of, you know, king of the blacks. I'm sure we all had it. I've had in politics, certainly, oh, what do Black people think about this? What do Black people think about that? I'm like, whoa. I'm just, if you want to know, maybe get a few more than one, and then you might have more of a spread.
There's a lot of Black people out there, so, you know, can't speak for all of them, I'm afraid. Yeah, no. But, sorry, that was a voice from somewhere. Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary.
I just wanted to just add something. So I work for Reach PLC. So we're one of the biggest published companies in the country. We own OK Magazine, Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, Daily Star, Daily Record, and 100 visual titles. So we are a really big company. And what I'm really happy about is they have made diversity, I hate the word diversity, but they've made diversity, inclusion, and privacy. And this week we launched a Black Britain campaign. So basically all the issues that affect Black Britain, so across health, employment, education, fashion, TV, it's in print. So every day you go to the Daily Mirror, you see it in print, so pull out, or online. And so I'm currently writing a piece about obviously discrimination, you know, hiring and so forth, and, you know, trying to get a job. So it's really good coming here, hearing your experiences. But we are actually, I know I think they're still looking for contributors for the campaign, because it's actually going to be ongoing, not just beyond this week. So I've dropped my email in the chat box. We also offer paid internships. Obviously the climate's a bit obviously hard now because coronavirus, but one of the interns, she's a Black girl, lovely, very talented, 6 months, She works across every news desk, the news, features, social, and she's actually written a piece in today's Daily Mirror about discrimination in pensions. So if you got the Mirror or you got a news agent, check her out. She's amazing. And she's loving it because it's her pick really. At any internship, she can pick which department she wants to work in because she's that good and she's very valuable. So yeah, so I just want to kind of offer that out there really. So my email address is in a chat. I'm happy to offer an advice or, you know, or anything really about just the place that I've worked and my company at the moment and what we're doing with the Black Britain campaign and going forward really. So.
Thank you so much, Mary. And I've seen that you've put a really helpful comment in the chat box. It's great to see you guys are, you know, very interactive with the chat box. Please keep it going. So yeah, she's kindly put some details in there. Feel free to put a contact in there as well, Mary, like a Twitter or an email. But
yeah, I've got my email address.
You've got
Got my Twitter. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. All of the vital information that's been put there, we're going to sort of compile it and put in an email that we'll send out to you next week, just in case anyone feels a bit flustered as I am with all the amazing messages coming through. So we've got a couple more questions. Got one. The next one is from Marverine Cole. So Marv, I saw your lovely face somewhere. If you could kindly unmute yourself and let us know of your question.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Thanks very much, Hannah. And what an incredible group, incredible event. Loving your work so much.
Thank you so much.
I'm a bit of an old lady. Jean, I beat you. I'm a bit of an old lady. If this had existed like 20 years ago when I was starting out, I would be so happy. I'm so used to being the one Black journalist in the newsroom. And also big up to Jean and Mary talking about their opportunities. Thanks to Kez and Maurice. And there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask both Kez and Maurice really. As well as allyship, I wanted to know your thoughts on the importance of us supporting each other. You know, when I think of kind of an associate of mine, Nadine White, who's at HuffPost, you know, I love seeing her work and, you know, I try wherever, obviously, to amplify her work because, you know, she at HuffPost and my university, BCU, we have a partnership together. Where I lead undergraduate journalism at Birmingham City University, we are the centre for the HuffPost Centre for Journalism, right? She is amazing. There's a massive quote on our wall in our classroom, our main classroom, which is attributed to Nadine, right? So Maurice and Kez, I really want to know how important it is, or what you think about the importance of amplifying each other's voices, because I think the power that you've created, this network that you've created, Hannah, is just so impactful that we can all be circulating each other's work and elevating each other's voices. Maurice, Kez.
Hiya.
Wanted to know your thoughts on it. Hello.
yeah. So the amplifying each other's voices is incredibly important. It's definitely what it was the sort of lifeblood of Media Diversified. It was really what we were about. So even when you know, journalists would write something, whether for us or one of our journalists would go off and write on one of the nationals, we would always do a lot of that spreading. I think sadly, you know, we need to be honest, and I'm hoping maybe that this will make me sound super old and this doesn't happen anymore. But back in my day, there was always the danger of the sort of, I don't know, the tall poppy thing, that, you know, the only Black in the village almost. And if I remember, this is why I will always, not just because of his writing ability, but I'll always have love for Gary Young. The very first time I walked into The Guardian, he made an effort and came up to me. And, you know, we knew each other from before, but he made a real effort of making me feel comfortable. And he sort of whispered, I bet they're gossiping about what those two blackies are talking about. But it just made me straight away feel relaxed. And that's something, obviously, that he was in a, you know, Gary at The Guardian is in the position to be able to do that. Sadly, most of the time, you know, you look around and there isn't someone of that ilk. So you know, not thinking of, I've got a cliched quote that I would say, that life isn't a race, it's a dance. And if you remember that we're all kind of in that dance together, then every time I big up someone else, you know, it's bigging me up too. And just remembering that, and not having the individual competition thing. There's absolutely zero value in that.
Yeah, totally agree, Maurice, sorry. And that phrase, I haven't heard that phrase before, life's not a race, it's a dance, but yeah, it just makes so much sense. And, you know, whatever opportunity I have to amplify of that colleague, or, you know, that's an opportunity that I feel is valuable and I'm going to take it. And I do feel like a few years ago, maybe when we were at The Voice, you would have just one or two black people in industry, and it was the only black in the media village. And I think it was similar with women in those days as well. Like, there's only room for one, and people are pitted against each other. And I don't see that anymore, especially in the younger people, you know, because the younger generation is more diverse probably than our generation was. And I hope that's going to be reflected as that cohort moves through the organisations and through the hierarchy. And I don't see that Simpson kind of rivalry, like there's only room for one. It feels like people are very much kind of collegiate and wanting to support each other. And it also feels like for now, for us at our age and our sort of career stage and up as well, I think we're in situations where black people have never been in before, in media, in kind of mainstream media, in all different, setting up their own platforms like Black Ballad and Alden. You know, it's like they've got their own, they don't have to fight to get into the mainstream. They can do it themselves, or we can do it ourselves. So it feels like we're in a really different position. And for most black journalists I encounter, amplifying other voices is a really important part of being in the industry. It's kind of a responsibility.
Thanks ever so much, Kez. And Hannah, can I quickly say off the back of that?
Yeah.
Amplifying each other's voices and helping each other, I'd like to just respond or reiterate the fact that I've mentored for 10 years aspiring journalists and wannabe broadcasters. So anybody who wants to, you know, jump into my DMs at TV Marv or on LinkedIn, Marva and Cole, and come and ask me questions. I've had loads of people actually since Black Lives Matter just pop up and go, can I talk to you? And I say, absolutely, yes, please. And thanks, Anais. Anais is just saying, I mentored you a few years ago, so please come and talk to me, and I'll guide you as far as I can.
Absolutely. And yeah, that's exactly what we want to happen. Thank you so much, Marv. You're absolutely amazing. I've been following you for a while, and I really appreciate, you know, what you do for the community. And that's one thing that I really want loads of us to be doing. In the chat box, plug yourselves, your blog, your portfolio, emails. Yeah, it's let's just make this as interactive as possible. I'm aware that there are quite a few questions, but I don't want to rob everyone of their Thursday evening. So the last one that I'm going to choose, I'm sorry, is by Dion Boateng. And it's more of an advice question, which I think is great, and it would be good to hear from yourself, Maurice and Kes. So Dion says, I'm a 30-year-old career changer, and despite being proactive and doing internships and courses, I keep getting rejected from internships and jobs I apply to, and would appreciate some advice, please. So loads of doors shutting, basically. And I'm sure, you know, to get to where you are now, you both yourself, Kes and Maurice, had to face a lot of closed doors, a lot of, unfortunately, emails. So it'd be great to get some advice for, you know, any of the aspiring journos or anyone here who would like some advice when it comes to rejection.
Have you got anything, Maurice? I'm trying to think of some helpful advice.
A life full of rejection, to be honest. Yeah. No, as a freelance journalist, I guess like being an actor or something, you have to just be ridiculously thick-skinned, and you know, half the time. I was writing a book about 15 years ago, and I sent it to a friend who was in publishing, and they didn't reply. And I took from that my book was rubbish and stopped writing it. Spoke to them about it 15 years later, and they said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I never got round to reading it. I just didn't get back to you. I've been feeling guilty all this time. I literally stopped writing because I assumed it was a load of nonsense. So, you know, we're all, you know, we're all, writing's quite an ego thing, isn't it? So we're all kind of vulnerable out there, but it's learning to go, all right, if they don't like it, I'm not going to put any, that's no judgment on, I know, you need to take advice when it comes back to you, sure. But someone just not replying or just not getting around to you, that could be a million and one things. They could be terrible at organising their day. It's soul destroying, but just keep knocking the door, find other doors to knock, you know, make your noise elsewhere until they hear you. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, just been trying to think of an answer because it is really, really difficult. That sense of, you know, like you say, like doors closing. I'm not an expert, but I'd say also, as well as keeping knocking on doors and focusing on who you really want to, you know, focus your energy really carefully on who you want to be in touch with. Also, maybe just keep doing what you do. You know, if there's a way to do what you do without having a kind of necessarily an outlet, you know, if it's writing all the time, or, you know, I'm sorry, was it writing? Was it writing was the field that you're interested in? As I missed that.
I think Dion mentioned just sort of like a shift from going one place to the other. So there's so many comments.
Yes, I meant, sorry.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
hi, yes, I meant writing. I want to get into magazine and print journalism.
So writing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so in a way, like, it's so frustrating, those doors closing, but just my personal advice would be to try to keep your own momentum and your own sort of, your own morale up by keeping doing what you're doing and doing what you love to do, regardless of whether anyone's out there kind of paying you as yet. Like, I'm not saying do free work, but do your own thing, do your own work. And then just so you're keeping your morale going till as and when the time comes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maurice. Thanks, Kesewa.
Thank you. Honestly, just loving all the interaction. Maurice and Kesewa, just a massive thank you. You've both been amazing. Obviously, just being aware of time, that's why we've not been able to get through all of the questions, but we have, I've kept note of all the questions that have been asked. They are not being ignored. They will be regarded, and we'll find a way of getting them to Maurice and Kes to answer. Pop back an email and we can email you. Where can we find you, Maurice and Kesewa, if anyone wants to get in contact with you?
I'm probably easy. I'm all over the place. Twitter, I'm at MoWords, M-O words, simple enough. Email, I think probably Twitter might be the best way, but email, I'm Maurice, M-A-U-R-I-C-E. I'll write all this down in the thingy, but I'm Maurice at marmosetmedia.com. But Twitter is probably these, MoWords.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you're on mute.
Sorry, I just unmuted. Twitter's probably best for me as well, so I just put my thing in it at Hannah Kesewa on Twitter.
Lovely, and I've just repeated it there, just those who want to go directly on it. But yeah, thank you so much. In person, we would have clapped by now, but that would be weird to do on Zoom. So I'll just move on to the next bit. Oh, we're seeing claps. Thank you. Lovely people clapping. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. But yeah, really, really appreciate you both. And yeah, super, super excited. Please stick around. We're still here for about 20-ish more minutes. Again, don't want to take too much of your Thursday evenings. So yeah, as I've touched on earlier, for those who were there, for those who have just joined, allyship is the theme. You know, just coming together, especially with those who are visibly in a higher position of power, shall I say, and how we can work collaboratively to just create more of that visibility, which is very much so needed. And it's been great to connect with lots of journos who have opened their time to say, hey, I want to help. I can look at CVs, I can do X, Y, and Z. So we want to bring these people to the forefront. So hopefully the next 1, 2, 3, 4 people I'm going to introduce are all here and able to offer their tips and etc. So I'm going to go first to Alexandra Hill, who is from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. Alexandra, are you in the house? If so.
Hi, I am. Sorry, looking very sweaty.
No, I can't even find you, so don't worry, but thank you.
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to say that I'm really keen to offer anything I can in terms of mentoring, especially young journalists. I've only been a full-time journalist for 2 years, but before I did do a lot of freelancing around my undergraduates and my postgrad at City, and so that was mainly at the BBC. So I have a fair few contacts there if people are interested, and generally just having kind of been trying to get into journalism recently, I feel like hopefully I could kind of share some advice on that. And if anybody wanted some mentoring, so in terms of somebody that you can speak to regularly about your applications and what your jobs you're applying to or things you want to do in journalism, as I said, I wouldn't say that I have that much experience to draw on, but as somebody who's young, hopefully I can help out a bit. I didn't say what I'm doing now. I'm a reporter at the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, which is a non-profit public interest media organisation. It was set up about 10 years ago because investigative journalism particularly, so kind of long-form journalism, was really declining in newsrooms after the 2008 crash. So we're philanthropically funded, and everything we do is we try and do in the public interest. And I know Megan and Maddie are here from the Bureau as well tonight. Megan is Chief Health Correspondent, so if anybody's interested in that area, I'm sure she wouldn't mind them getting in touch and just volunteering your services. And then Megan is the editor of the Bureau Local, which is a network of local journalists all around the UK, trying to kind of help address the kind of massive problems in local journalism at the moment. And she's been doing loads and loads of work around and her team, not just Megan, but her whole team, of doing a lot of work on changing the story and ways to report with communities, not just on communities, and all that kind of stuff. The Bureau is very, there's a lot of conversations going on at the Bureau around all these topics since George Floyd. We definitely don't just want it to be something that is just something that's discussed for a few weeks and then forgotten about. I think if anybody wanted any, was interested in the kind of journalism we do, or the journalism that any of us might have done in the past, or just any kind of tips or advice, definitely get in touch with us. And just to reiterate, I'm really happy to offer any kind of formal mentoring myself, and I'm sure lots of other people at the Bureau would be
Okay. Sorry, Alex, your voice just went away. I don't know if is it me? I'm not entirely sure, but I think when you were speaking, I can't hear you too well. Is it me or is it Alex, everyone? Please let me know. Hopefully it's not me. Can everyone hear me? Okay, thumbs up. Okay, it's not me. Yay. Sorry, Alex, it's you. But no, I think, you were just sort of like concluding what you were saying. So thank you, Alex. If you could just please, okay, you guys can hear Alex as well. I'm not too sure, something on mine. If you could perhaps just pop any contact details or a Twitter account or any way to get in touch with the other people in your organization that you also mentioned. Again, we're gonna try and collate all of this amazing information, all these contact details, and put them in an email. Hopefully every single person in this chat received an email from us, So if you have received an email from us confirming you being here, that means that you're on our list of people to contact following up from this. Thank you, Alex, for dropping your details. And thank you so much for chatting with us as well. And yeah, so the next person that I'm really, really excited to announce is Anne-Marie Tomczak, who I've been fortunate enough to work with during my short time at BBC Trending, where we met. Oh, and I can see her lovely thumb now, and I'm unmuting you now. Okay. I hope it works. Please work. No, it doesn't work. Oh, I can't hear.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank God. Sorry for
Thanks so much, Hannah, and thank you very much for facilitating such an amazing session. It's really, really brilliant, and brilliant speakers as well. Thanks to everyone as well for sharing all the brilliant questions. As Hannah mentioned, she and I met probably about 6 years ago in the BBC. It was 6 or 7 years ago. That's how long it's been since I worked in there. But just to give you a summary of what I've done and what I'm doing now, which might be helpful. I spent about 12 years in public service broadcasting. So very much television, online and radio with the national broadcaster in Ireland, where I'm originally from. And then about 6 years in the BBC, where I launched BBC Trending in 2013. And from there, I met brilliant people like Hannah, and it was very much working in a multicultural environment, in the sense that I was part of BBC World News, which felt like, you know, a very global newsroom. There were 27 different language services at the time, but there was still definitely a diversity gap, in the sense that there was a drive at that time, this is 2016, to try to reach a more diverse audience in the name of public service. So to reach different audiences, not just an ABC1 audience, as it's called, you know, quite white, middle class professionals, so to speak. You know, there was a drive to do other things. But I definitely felt that at the time there was a gap both in diversity, and I even feel that that word alone can be problematic. And there was a gap in gender equality within the leadership. So these were things that the corporation was definitely aware about and wanting to address. I do feel things have changed somewhat, but they're still not there now, haven't been there for a little while, but there's still lots of work to do. From there, I went on to Mashable to head up the UK office there, leading a team of journalists around technology, entertainment, doing topics around AI, so very much pivoted away from global news into tech. And then in 2019, I joined British Vogue, which was at the time being edited by, and now edited by, Edward Enninful. So I was hired by a person who was, you know, who made headlines for becoming the editor of Vogue for a range of reasons. You know, he was the first man to hold that role with the world's fashion Bible. You know, it was a magazine that's been around since 1916, a long lineage and a long heritage and a long legacy. One that did not look like the Vogue that you see today under Edward Enninful. And the things that he was doing with that brand and that title were really progressive in terms of the types of subject matter that they would cover, speaking much more directly to the audience, trying to bring a wider range of people into the room. So looking at diversity in a very wide range of ways. You know, he was a black gay man. The publisher is a black woman. And then the rest of the leadership team, they brought me in, who wasn't from, you know, a fashion elite background at all. I grew up in rural Ireland and was very much from a technology background. So bringing in different voices into the room to move the title forward. And you can really see that, I think, if you look at the website now, just Google vogue.co.uk, I think you can see the richness of what Edward Enninful has achieved as editor-in-chief. This year I've started working with British Glamour in Condé Nast. And I guess the reason I reached out to Hannah when I saw that this webinar was happening is that, although as someone who's been leading teams and hiring people in different roles, whether they're senior editor roles or whether they're interns, I've definitely still noticed that there's a massive gap there, even when I've worked in places where my boss has been a person of color. There's still, it still doesn't you know, it's still not completely and utterly equal. If you have someone at the top who's an editor, there's still like a massive gap in the middle that still needs to be more representative. And I think that, you know, for my part, really keen to come in here and listen and learn about being a better ally, and try to work privately. And I didn't realize I'd be speaking to an entire room. Really just here to privately go about doing things, not in a performative way, you know, offer advice on applications, on understanding a title's editorial proposition, on looking at a CV, what editors are looking out for when they are hiring a certain position. Most of my experience is more in the digital realm now. So I took with great interest what Kesewa was saying about audience growth and audience engagement. It's a really big part of any media title now that wants to survive. Even, you know, the big powerhouses of media still need really, really solid digital propositions. So if I can be of any help in that regard, and also with regard to commissioning and getting beyond a tokenistic way of amplifying or publishing more Black voices. You know, at the end of the day, the bottom line is representation across the board. And what I mean by that is, you know, at entry level right up to the top jobs. I think it has to be represented right across the spectrum. It can't be just like one end or the other. And I think that there are still massive gaps that need to be addressed, and we all need to play our part in order to do that. Can I just say one last thing? I realize I've talked a lot here and I'm really conscious of hogging the mic, but from listening to everyone ask questions about how do I take rejection and how do I improve my chances of getting a job in media, I'm just going to be really, really brutally honest here from my experience is, and this is probably not something that, you know, I say that is a good thing. I think it's a lot about who you know or who you're speaking to, because human beings tend to hire based on who they might know, who might be a good recommendation or who, and I think that's why partly we all need to be in this room together speaking to one another, because humans operate based on the communities that they are in. And unfortunately, the reality is that the system is not fair. The system needs to be dismantled. And that's why I'm here. I want to listen and learn and do what we can to try to dismantle this as much as we can.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. No, honestly, I really do appreciate that. I mean, not being biased, but someone that's personally worked with you, I think me just starting out in my career and literally having you there to give amazing words of advice and just be so supportive, I'll never forget that. So I really appreciate you. And thank you so much. Where can people find you and your excellence? How can they get in contact?
Oh, well, I wish I could have said all of that much more eloquently. It's really strange talking out of these headphones. I'm really responsive on social media. So my handle is consistently the same across every platform, at amtomchak. I'm going to type it in here on the comments on the chat. And my email is just my first name dot last name at gmail.com, as I'm on a sabbatical at the moment. So I'm not using my Condé Nast email. But I will type in both of those details, and I'm really happy to grab a virtual coffee or even meet in person if it's safe to do so. I'm already mentoring a number of different people through various schemes, and I'd be very happy to pick up a mentor if I'm the right fit of mentor for them. Also happy to look at CVs or applications if there are particular roles that you think my areas of expertise or backgrounds might help in. So if it's a role that's regarding technology, or if you're sending pitches, I can take a look at some of the types of pitches that you've been sending and give advice on that. But I think understanding the editorial proposition of a title and where the potential gaps are or where your strengths lie is key to a successful pitch or a successful application. I think also back to what Maurice said as well, that, you know, a lot of people who are reading all of these CVs, they just browse over them. So it's really, really important that you get a lot of the really important information in at the very top, because it's a very cursory look a lot of the time when you're dealing with hundreds of applications. I can definitely say more on that in one-to-ones if anyone wants to reach out to me. And also in my role with Glamour, British Glamour, It's a Condé Nast title that reports on fashion and beauty for millennial and Gen Z audience. We're doing a lot around personal finance, we're doing a lot around sustainability and fashion. We're keen to hear lots of different voices and speak very much directly to the audience. It's quite a different proposition to Vogue, which is more fashion centric, and it's also doing a lot around at the moment the coverage of it, their Pride coverage has been amazing. They do amazing work around the transgender community. So it really depends on the title. I could fill you in on some of the knowledge I have around the nuanced differences between some of these titles and how one pitch could work for one better than the other, for example. So very happy to help in any way that might be useful.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're just going to pass it on to our next spotlighter, just to tell us a little bit about what they're doing and how they'd like to get involved in helping and supporting Black journalists in any way that they can. And that is Louise Gwilliam. Louise, are you in the house?
Hi, yeah, and first person ever to pronounce my surname right. So
go me.
Hi everyone, I'm Louise William. So I currently work as the rugby producer at BBC Radio 5 Live. So I have obviously an inside knowledge of the BBC, if that can be helpful. But what I'm really here to talk about is that next month I'm actually leaving. So I'm moving to a new company that we've just set up called Crowd Network. So it's a podcast company, and that's sort of what I've been working in the last 2 years. And we're aiming to be the biggest podcast network in Europe within the next few years. So I'm going in as the talent director. So I'm going to be responsible for all our on-screen and off-screen hires going forward. So why I'm here today is I've just got this really unique opportunity to sort of shape a new company and shape it in a diverse and inclusive vision, and I feel really privileged I've got this opportunity. And I feel like I've championed diversity at the BBC before, but maybe not been in a position where I can actually hire people that I want to hire and hire diversity of thought. But in this new role, I will be able to do that. So I just wanted to come on and introduce myself, just listen to you all and hopefully meet you all. I think what Anne-Marie said is still true in the industry, that it's not necessarily nepotism, but it's who you know and networking events and meeting people in the industry, that if you then chuck your CV in, they'll think, oh, I've seen that name before, or I've been for a coffee with them, or I saw them on Twitter and I chatted to them on Twitter. So stuff like this is incredible, and I am making a massive effort to expand my network and meet brilliant Black journalists that I could potentially bring into our company. So I didn't have a background in podcasting. I don't have a background in journalism, full stop, actually. I really have no qualifications, but I have kind of done a bit of everything. So I started online and then got a chance to go and work for 5 Live. And I had never made a podcast in my life 2 years ago. I'd never even edited audio. I don't know how to. But in 2 years, I've just found something that I absolutely love. So I would say, even if hearing in this group, a lot of people are written journalists, if you are creative and you have ideas, you can translate that into podcasting, whether that's as a producer, whether that's on screen, whether that's as a video editor. So our company is going to be looking for all those sorts of roles, and just don't rule out podcasting, I guess, if you've never even considered it, because I hadn't considered it 2 years ago. And there's just so many good things that can come from it, and you can turn anything, as we know these days, into a podcast. So we're going to be, it's obviously a really new company, and we've got to get our feet under the carpet first, but I'm going to be making all the podcasts to start with, along with one other colleague. But obviously going forward, we're going to need freelancers, we're going to need full-time producers. There's going to be, we hope, if it makes money, so many opportunities. And the people that I'm working with, we're all 3 of us leaving the BBC to do it. So, you know, it's a big risk for us, but we really believe in the podcast market. And I just really believe in making sure that the organisation has as diversity of thought and is open to everyone. The other thing to say is it's going to be based in Manchester, and we're really committed to employing people in the local area. But obviously, we know with podcasts, they can be made anywhere, and a lot of ours will be made in London. So although we're going to make a massive commitment, if anyone hears from Manchester or the North, to furthering journalism up here, there will obviously be loads of opportunities for people in London. So yeah, just thank you for having me today. It's been really insightful listening to you all, and hopefully, yeah, connect with me. And if it's something you're interested in, I'd love to go for maybe a virtual coffee.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Louise. And it sounds really exciting what you're working on. So I'll definitely be in touch because I may have some ideas coming your way. And that's what's great, because I've seen it being touched on before that not everyone aspires to work for the BBC or Channel 4 or etc. Like some people want to start working for indies or, you know, new platforms which they can sort of like mold into their own. So the opportunities are endless. I think it's just searching far and wide and seeing where you fit. And I guess that also goes in line with the whole rejection thing. I was meant to comment on that question earlier by Dion about rejection, and how I see it is unless someone emails you back saying go away, then that isn't a rejection or that isn't a reason to give up. You know, I usually would email someone, and if I don't hear back in maybe about 7 working days, then I'll follow up again. If I don't hear back after that, I'll give it another couple of weeks. And if I don't hear back the third and final time, then I'll leave it. And Maurice touched on earlier, like you never really know what's happening on the other end. So don't be discouraged if you don't hear from someone. Just, yeah, keep on trying. And if the email doesn't work, maybe a tweet will. If a tweet doesn't, then sliding in an Instagram DM or whatever. So yeah, thank you for that, Louise. And yeah, the last spotlighter who I'm going to hand it over is Madeline Davies from the Bureau of Investigative Journalism. She's also expressed interest and wants to tell us a little bit about what she's doing. Madeline, are you there? No? Okay. One more call out for Madeline. If not, that's no worries at all, because she also works alongside Alexandra Hill, who spoke a bit earlier and is from the same organisation. So now we get to hear more of your lovely, beautiful voices. So this little session is an open floor for literally anyone who wants to, I don't know, plug something that they're working on that they would like to share with others, any particular points, any takeaways, any feedback for us, aka me, and on, you know, what to do for future engagements. I'm really open to things. So if anyone does want to make any comments or anything of that sort, if you could please just...
Can I quickly make a quick point?
Go for it, Mary.
Someone, I can't remember, someone said about how, or maybe it was Yasmin, about how the strugglers get in the industry and it's different ways. And what's interesting that not everyone actually thinks about this, but temping. So I got my first foot on a national whilst as a temp. So I actually was just looking for, at that time I didn't really know about Mail Online, and I knew it was massive, but I didn't read it. And the Wall of Shame and the showbiz stuff, and at that time they were much smaller than they are now. And I was actually a temp. For 3 months, I was actually assistant and managing editor. And that's how I got a foot in the door in the national. Because in Northcliffe House, unfortunately, the rule is, I'm not sure it's changed now, but before when I was there, they won't touch anyone unless you're a qualified journalist. So a lot of people come in as freelancers and they'll say, look, you're great, but you have to go and do NCCJ. Once you're qualified, we'll come back. So temping was a great way. Obviously now the climate is really difficult with coronavirus and so forth, but temping is a great way. And so I just kept bugging the news teams. I can write, let me write. Yeah, man, we heard you so much. And I kept bugging them in the pubs, everything. And then the week before my contract ended, they're like, right, just, here you go, write a story about Twilight. And that was it really. And that's how I got my foot in the door at Mail Online, which obviously encompassed Daily Mail and obviously Mail on Sunday and the same block as Evening Standard and obviously the Eye and so forth, Metro, all in the same building. And that's how I got my foot in the door, just by temping at a publication that I never really knew about at that time. And, you know, and now that's how I was doing night shifts, and I made networks and a lot of people, and that's how I kind of became a freelancer there for on and off for a few years. So I would recommend temping. It's a great way for any organization, BBC, ITV, you know, everyone needs a receptionist, everyone needs a PA, everyone needs someone who does invoices or that kind of stuff. You know, everyone needs someone. And when you're there, just make a voice heard and just bug them. So I can write, I'm passionate, you know, and keep pitching to people, and I'll eventually listen, because you're in a building anyway. You might not be in an apartment, but you're in a building. You can chat to them in the canteen, grab coffee, chat to them in the sofa area. That's your foot in the door. And once you're in there, just impress them.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, persistent.
Can I add to that? Is I think Mary's absolutely right. And, you know, when I've been running teams in the past, I have to admit that there have been a lot of people who've held, let's say, for example, one job spec that wasn't as a writer, but that their goal was to be a writer. And I think that a good boss will listen to what someone's goals are, and they will either try to find ways to allocate time to them, to commission them for features that they can do, either in addition to so long as they can carry out their duties that they've actually been hired for. A boss will help nurture them towards fulfilling that goal and getting that byline. And, you know, another thing I would say is that from hiring on digital teams, one thing that I've noticed that there's a huge deficit of, and a really big demand for, in the digital space in publishing, is really talented social media producers and really talented audience engagement executives. These are the type of roles that are actually massively in demand. Whenever I've tried to hire for those roles, it's been exceptionally difficult to find people who are talented for the role, because they're like gold dust. Once you find a good one, you want to hold on to them. They're very much in demand. So I think about like what you're passionate about. If you like storytelling on social as well, I think we're talking about journalism in very traditional terms here, but journalism is a very, very broad profession that can go into everything from photojournalism, picture research. You might be working styling with a print team. You might be working on data analytics or visual journalism, investigative journalism that we've just talked about. You know, there's a wide range, a really wide spectrum. I'm again conscious of hogging the mic here, but I do think that we can look at this career path, not necessarily just in traditional terms. You might end up finding, like in my case, I found myself in Vogue, having never planned to work for the Fashion Bible. It's because I was a journalist in technology and in digital. So I think there are different entry points there, and I think Mary was absolutely right.
I totally agree with Anne-Marie, because I'm a social media editor and journalist, and a lot of people just think social media is just posting a picture on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. It's not. As she actually mentioned, it's literally data insights. So I work for 3 papers, Mirror, Express and Star, all completely different. The Star and Mirror are more closely aligned, but the Express is complete opposite of. So at General Election Day, you had, you know, we had, you know, Labour, Mirror, Star, Neutral, Express, Tory. And our front pages were so like, people were like, how can we be the same company, but you're so different? So obviously on a Friday when Boris won, the Express was so happy, the Mirror were like, no. So you had different people in the canteen, in the kitchen. Some people are literally in tears, other people are like, you know, celebrating. That's how, you know, different. So social media wise, you can't, a post on Twitter or Facebook for Express wouldn't work for the Star, wouldn't work for the Mirror. So data insights, analytics, and then we have so many measuring tools. If your data journalists get paid so much more money because they're experts in data, they know what works statistic-wise, and they go behind stats. So as Anne-Marie said, if you want to get into, if you're interested in that sense, then it's a great way to get into a company.
Thank you so much, Mary. Honestly, loving these points and the comments in the comment box simultaneously. So please do have a look in there. I'm just going to hand it over to the last person to share a point, and it's Laura Garcia, who's going to talk to us a little bit about press pads. So Laura, I'll hand it over to you. If you could say what you're going to say in about 2 minutes, that would be fabulous, please.
Yeah, former broadcast journalist, so I can keep things short and sweet. Hi guys, everybody. We're really glad to be here. A bunch of my team are also here. just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that maybe we can do to help support and that we would love your help on as well. For all of you guys who are starting out in your career, over the summer, PressPad is holding completely free events, whether they're masterclasses on like how to make your CV look better, how to think about breaking news, how to do mobile journalism, and we're also doing lots of one-on-one CV clinics and pitch clinics. So if you're wondering how could your pitch be better to maybe make sure that someone reads it, you get half an hour straight on personalized advice with one of us. And for anybody who's like an experienced journalist, we would love to have you on board to some of the mentoring events that we're putting together to help young journalists get that support, because it must be so scary having graduated or going into the industry right now when we're all at home, and it was a hard industry to get into in the first place. And this has just turned it upside down. And to the point that Mary was saying before about social, I'd say the same. If you're interested in broadcasting, get into TikTok, because that's vertical storytelling, and think about broadcasting beyond your television screens and how those skills can be transferable and how that can make you stand out when you're applying for a job. So yeah, hit us up if we can help at all. I'm sure one of my colleagues will put our website and our details in the chat box in a second. We're happy to help. Let us know how we can help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was very short and sweet, Laura. I really do appreciate your input and just everyone for all the amazing help that you're offering. And I definitely do want to stress, I understand that, you know, race, racism, microaggressions, Black Lives Matter, all of these, you know, very important topics is pretty much at the forefront right now. It's a global talking point and conversation. But another thing that I really want to stress, especially to everyone who's offered help in this, is that please let's think of the long term, not just seasonal. You know, I don't want it to be something where just because race is something that I have to talk about was being pushed in my face, I have to, you know, of course I'm going to do it now. I don't know about next year, but now let's think about the long term. How can we support journalists in the long term? How can we, you know, keep that communication, build those relationships? If it's a virtual coffee once a month. So let's also please hold ourselves accountable, because I'm loving this energy and I just really hope it continues. So thank you so much to everyone for every comment, for just staying with me, you know, from the 80 plus participants that we've had. It means so much. I'm just gonna touch really quickly about We Are Black Journos. So we are on Twitter and we are on Instagram. On Twitter is We Black Journos. Didn't get enough characters, but on Instagram it's We Are Black Journos. So please do connect with us, share it around, and etc. And in terms of our team, it's kind of weird because it's small and very seasonal. So those who have been to our physical events in the past, I do have, you know, because I do some mentoring myself, I do have some mentees who help out, which is amazing. And you know, managing it is pretty much okay. Like, I'm a super organized person, so it's been fine. I've literally responded to pretty much every email. Apologies in advance for any typos in those. But yeah, definitely looking to expand the team. Again, very seasonal, nothing too demanding. I just want to touch on 5 main things that we need at We Are Black Journos. So someone that's able to help with admin. So just things like mailing list. If you want to get involved, if you want to help out with any bit of that, please do pop an email, weareblackjournos@gmail.com, or just find us anywhere, or just drop something in the comments. I can get in touch. Secondly, someone that's really good with social media. It'd be great to have someone like that. Someone who can build a website or knows a thing or two about how to put it together. Someone, again, this is something for the long term, to help with fundraising. Again, events that we've had in the past have literally come out of my own pocket, which I'm very happy to do because I'm very passionate about it. We have been able to get some freebies from like Propercorn, the best popcorn brand ever, giving us free boxes for our events and stuff like that. But someone that can get into that kind of stuff, because I have no clue. And another person with comms, again, getting the word out there. If anyone is able to devote a couple of hours a week, or would just really like to support in any way but don't know how to, or just want to get involved, that would be amazing. So please do pop an email, send a DM. We're pretty much all over that. So yeah, this is where the thank you, Olivia. I'll get in contact, and thank you everyone just for all the amazing comments. This is where we'll end it, but I'm not going to click close because I don't want anyone to miss out on any of the stuff that's been in the comment section, and there might be stuff that I've been reading and have missed out on. So this is an official goodbye. So I'm saying goodbye for the evening, but I'm not going to close the chat, just in case anyone would like to chat with anyone else, because obviously I've got the keys and the power to end this. If you want to, I don't know, message someone else briefly or etc., then you're more than free to do so. Otherwise, I just want to say a massive thank you for coming to our first ever virtual event. There may be another one soon, considering how, you know, things are re COVID-19. But I do hope that we get to have a physical one where it's safe, and it will be great to obviously see and meet loads of you. So if anyone has any questions or pointers, then you know where to find us. And I hope that you've at least learned of someone else in this group that you may potentially would like to get in contact with. Sorry if you'd like to get in contact with me personally. I did write this down in advance. I'm so nerdy. Let me post it in. So that's me on Instagram, on Twitter. I type with lots of emojis. Really happy typer. So yeah, don't ever hesitate to get in contact. And yeah, thank you so much again for joining. So again, I'm just gonna say goodbye. Hope you all have a lovely evening. Those who would like to leave are free to. Those who would like to stay in the chat and see what's going on, please do. But other than that, thank you so much everyone, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.